as Carol said, there's a lot of this information. It's not new information, but it really is about how you package it and how you have those, create a common language. Because when you're dealing with so many disciplines, which in older adult work we need all those disciplines, but we all speak our siloed languages. P.I.E.C.E.S brings it all together, including families. It's a language that everybody can both get behind and understand. So let's just talk a little bit about what are some of the behavioral issues that you get calls about. So what are some of the things that you get those calls, we need your help? Aggression, right, okay. Wandering? Vocalizing. Very nice, thank you. That's a great word. You've obviously worked with Carol. So otherwise known as yelling, screaming, you know, we have a screamer. There's a lot of, or we have a wanderer, as if, you know, that describes somebody really. So P.I.E.C.E.S is one of the things that you'll see as we go through this, is P.I.E.C.E.S really focuses on being specific about this is a person with a behavior, right? This is not a behavior that we're supposed to deal with, right? So it really goes back to, so yes, so thank you. Someone who vocalizes. What else?
Exit seeking?
Exit seeking, right. So, and that's different from wandering often, because the exit seeking can become very associated with a lot of anxiety or upset and lead to aggression. Yeah.
Resisting care?
Yes, so yes, resisting care. So, or as we like to say, refusing care or overwhelmed by care. That's what we're trying to find other language, because the resisting care is often that I don't understand the care. So I'm not actually wanting to resist what you're doing if I understood it, but right now it feels like you're just entering my space and you're going to invade me. So I will protect myself. So self-protective care is often another language. In terms of how do we provide care to people who are struggling to understand, and how do we help them to feel safe. So that's huge. Any other behaviors that you get called about?
Hypersexuality.
Hypersexuality, right? So, or sexually disinhibited behavior is a lot of it, right? So it's either hypersexual behavior in terms of sort of touching nursing staff when they're trying to give care, or talking verbally in ways that make the staff feel uncomfortable, or families, or it might be something that we call a hypersexual behavior. You might get the call for hypersexual behavior and you find out, well, it's actually urinating in a plant pot, or it's masturbating in public. And so, you know, that isn't necessarily hypersexual, it's just being sexual in a place that doesn't work for the rest of the community. So a lot of it is taking that step back and making sure that we know what it is specifically we're going in to support. So in terms of the way we've talked about behavioral symptoms that are related to dementia, the typical one, and you see it on the website, you'll see it, you know, even in our language today, is behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. What does that actually mean for you when you hear that term? Behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia. One of the challenges for me throughout my career has been that it makes it sound like all the behaviors we're seeing are related specifically to the neurodegenerative disorder. And while the neurodegenerative disorder is the context, and the person and their illness of a dementia are the context for the behaviors we're seeing, they're not all related specifically to the neurocognitive deficits. They're often, you know, because if that were the case, there'd be nothing you can do about it. It would be all medication, right? It would be all medication. It would be all, sorry, there's really not too much we can do. When in fact, a lot of it is, yes, I might be touching a nurse during care in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable because I'm not understanding, or because the breast comes too close to me, actually, quite frankly, and it's there and it's a stimulus and I'm going to touch it. And so it's in the context of an illness, but the illness is not the only factor. It's how I am in that, what I need to do to make myself safe when I'm with this person who might misinterpret my actions.
Just saying, when I start rummaging through cupboards, it's because I'm looking for the chocolate that I'm always looking for, and that has nothing to do with my dementia. Okay? So I may happen to be demented, but I'll be looking for the chocolate anyways. Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges we actually have with BPSD, is it makes it sound like it's all the dementia, there's nothing we can do except for maybe medicate. So we're really looking to use other terms, and one of them is dementia-related protective behaviors, and that works for aggression. So that works, you know, before, times when someone is exit seeking and you're trying to redirect them, but they're becoming more and more frightened and are actually then push somebody or punch somebody. And it's usually in the context of protecting themselves. So that's often a useful way to phrase it, because people often think that, it's about hurting you. It isn't about hurting you, it's about protecting me in those contexts. And that's a totally different way of looking at it. Or neuropsychiatric symptoms of dementia, which again kind of puts it in that category of disease-related, but that these are terms you'll see. And then responsive behaviors is the term that we're in Canada tending to use more and more. And it was developed by the Murray Alzheimer Research and Education Program. And most behaviors that we see are in response to a trigger. It might be an internal trigger. So sometimes you need to think about what's going on inside the brain, but a lot of times it's external. So just to say that we like to kind of use responsive because our job as in the collective job, is to identify what are the triggers and what is the context in which this is occurring. And from there, make a plan to move forward. How are responsive behaviors related to dementia approached? Well, the idea is that we should be developing a comprehensive and the ECO, meaning environment, biological, psychological, and social assessment, using that, and creating an individualized care plan. And that's the goal, and that's what P.I.E.C.E.S is going to help us do. So we'll talk about, by the end, you should really have a pretty good handle on how it works. Maybe the skill of using it is something you learn over time. The standard of practice is non-pharmacological intervention first, and pharmacological interventions in certain situations. The term non-pharmacological is even a kind of a deficit term. How can non-pharmacological be first, but we say it's non? So that's why the ecopsychosocial, and that's like a mouthful, but it's a positive term, right? It's looking at a holistic approach to the situation rather than, you've got pharmacological and non-pharmacological interventions. The result is we have an over-reliance on medications. So here are some of the interventions that we look at. So some target the person. So we know that one of the most powerful mechanisms that remains really well intact throughout the illness actually, is music and the ability to connect with rhythm and music, because it's a different part of our brains. And so individualized music programs and some really innovative strategies are occurring using iPods, using iPads, developing playlists, using earphones, so it doesn't bother everybody, but so people can really connect with music that they love. Sensory stimulation like the Snozolin or aromatherapy, and we have sort of made light of some of these things, and it's because the research is not particularly robust, but aromatherapy actually does have some evidence base for it. One of the challenges with aromatherapy is that we're in a scent-free environment, so it works at home, but oftentimes you'll come up against roadblocks that people they don't want to use scented products, etc.
What's Snozolin?
Snozolin is a multi-sensory room. So it's and it has lights and it has sound, and it's used to sometimes for children who have autism as well.
That's where it started.
That's where it started, right? And there's some data around it. The challenge with Snozolin is it requires someone to be with the person. And anything that requires somebody, to be with the person is a manpower issue, a person power issue. So a lot of places will have a Snozolin room that becomes the wheelchair cupboard. Simulated presence. So for the people who vocalize, there's been some good work done that for some people, simply, listening to their family members speak to them through earphones, and so that calms them down, especially if they're calling for that person, or seeing videos of the person talking to them can sometimes be helpful. Doesn't happen now. None of these things happen as much as they probably should, in part because we haven't really dug into how to make them, kind of workable in our situations. Exercise for all of us. Exercise is important as eating. Now, somebody said that to me. An older woman the other day said, for me, exercise is as important as eating. And I thought, wow, that's a very good way to look at it. And certainly with the population of older people, it's a really important strategy. And then participation in pleasant events. Oh my gosh, that's an intervention. That just blows my mind, right? But that there isn't necessarily enough of what people really enjoy in their lives to engage them. So that's why the exit seeking often arises, because they're so, there isn't enough to engage me in wherever I am. Targeting the environment, the level of stimulation, we'll come back to that. Colors and contrasts has not been paid attention to, but we'll come back to that. Reduction of clutter. So hospitals are a struggle because there's so many carts and so many things everywhere. And it's a prime target if you happen to be like Barb and you're looking for the chocolate. Things that target the caregiver, mental health consultations that have actually been shown to be very helpful in research. Education of family, you were talking about that, and there's so much positive work that can be done around helping, and a lot of the work with frontline caregivers and with family, it's about communication. It's all about communicating how you use yourself as a therapeutic tool. In fact, that really needs to be under target the person is. I am a therapeutic tool when I am interacting with this person, and I can either make their day or I can break their day. We'll come back to that a bit. One of the things that happens with the non-pharmacological research is that they'll look at the benefit of aromatherapy, and they'll find it's fairly equivocal. And that's because it doesn't work for everybody, right? None of these things are universal. They're individual. It depends on, Barb needs chocolate, right? I need something different, and so what has been shown in the research around the non-pharmacological or behavioural is that an individualized approach is really what actually makes the difference. And there's now work by Cohen Mansfield to actually document that.